Jennifer Maripisi, and I'm the Executive Director of NESEA, the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association. Woo! Woo! So Building Energy is always a little bit like Old Home Week for me. But what makes it more special than Old Home Week is the fresh new faces that we welcome to Building Energy every year and that become familiar faces year after year. So I'd like to welcome you all to Building Energy. So I'm going to start by asking, how many of you are NESEA members? Oh my God, that's awesome. All right, okay. Now I'm going to make you stand up. Just for a couple minutes, all the NESEA members stand up. So the people, yeah, no, there's going to be time for that. There's going to be time for that. This is always an unruly crowd. The people you see standing, these are the people who plan the content of this conference. These are the people who bring you new offerings like the Building Energy NYC conference, or Be Nice, which is going to be held this year on October 16th. These are the people who bring you Building Energy Pro Tours, like the weekend-long tour we had at Yestermorrow last summer. These are the people who bring you new programs like Building Energy Bottom Lines, which will help you as members create the world you wish for through your own business. These are the people who inspire and conspire to offer just about everything we do here at NESEA. You see, NESEA is a member-driven organization. The members do the driving with support from our stellar staff. Yay! You don't have to applaud there, but I'm going to give you another chance to applaud soon. We are limited only by your energy, your imagination, and your willingness to share your ahas and your greatest mistakes. So let's give a big round of applause to you, our members. Okay, you may be seated. So if you were not among those standing, I hope your experience over the next 2 days will inspire you to join us so that you can share your ideas, your interests, and your energy can be part of our future. Talk to some of our members. Learn what it is that inspires them about being involved with NESEA. Then join. You can join over at the NESEA booth at the front of the trade show floor, or you can go online at www.nesea.org. Now let me give you a quick rundown of the rest of this session this morning. In a few moments, I'm going to call up our chair, Mark Sternick, and he's going to not yet, Mark. Not yet. He's going to introduce our first keynote speaker, Amanda Sturgeon. Amanda will be speaking until about 9:30, at which point Mark will return to the stage and introduce our second keynote speaker, Administrator Gina McCarthy from the EPA. And Administrator McCarthy will speak until about 10 o'clock, at which point we will announce the winner of our Zero Net Energy Building Award and confer our $10,000 prize. And Alicia Barton of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center is with us to make that announcement. After that, we'll have an announcement from Commissioner Mark Sylvia from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. He'll be sharing some breaking news with us about a new initiative on zero net energy buildings in the Commonwealth. Finally, Mark and BE14 Vice Chair Matt Root will return to the stage to open the trade show floor and send you off to your sessions at 10:30. As you can see, we have a jam-packed program this morning, so I promise to be brief. My most important job here is to do the thanking, and that's the easiest job that anybody on this stage has, because I'm filled with gratitude every time I look out at the group of people that put on this conference. So, first of all, we're delighted to welcome back many of the sponsors who've been with us for many years and to welcome aboard many of the new sponsors. Thanks also to the 90 or so members of the BE Planning Committee who plan the content of this conference, and the dozens of volunteers who make sure that things run smoothly and that you get your continuing education credits. Finally, thanks to Mark Sternick, our chair of BuildingEnergy14, who I'll call to the stage in just a moment. Not yet, Mark. Not now. Among other things, Mark has secured an embarrassment of riches for our keynote this morning. I have to say it is remarkable for NESEA to have such an accomplished group speaking at our opening plenary session. And it's equally remarkable to have so much estrogen on the keynote stage at once. So, especially given that the building trades are still only about 33% women. So Mark, we thank you for your leadership and persistence. We look forward to celebrating the culmination of your hard work over the next few days. Now I'd like to call Mark to the stage to make a few introductory remarks about the conference.
Good morning, and welcome to BE14. I am very excited about everything that we have put together into a 3-day building energy extravaganza of learning, exploring, sharing, and networking. And I want to take a minute to focus on the sharing part of this. This conference takes a huge amount of time and energy of a lot of people who have helped put it together. There's the planning committee, the dedicated track chairs, and the presenters themselves. The presenters share their time and their energy, and they also share the details of how they've succeeded in moving their projects forward and their work forward. And they often explain their mistakes, which allow us to bypass the mistakes that they've made ahead of us so that we don't have to make those same mistakes. That's huge, and that's quite a gift that people are sharing. We have firms that greatly contribute to all of our practices moving forward by sharing their studies and their research. Firms like Building Science Corporation, like Building Green, and like Stephen Winter Associates. These guys shared their work with us so that we can progress forward. You are going to get a lot out of your days, whatever time you spend at this conference. But I have to tell you that you can get a lot more out of this conference and out of this organization by sharing some of your time, by giving back to this community, and by becoming involved. Become a NESEA member, donate a little time. It doesn't have to be much at first. But you may actually find that the little bit of time that you do donate gives you back so much that you want to provide more, and you keep getting more out of it. I can tell you that the connections I have made through NESEA have changed the way I practice architecture. As a very recent example, I had a project, an $8 million affordable housing project that was designed to be very efficient. I contacted Carter Scott, and he did some consulting with me. The project became zero net energy capable, and that $8 million project is now a $7 million project, partially through a lot of his help. That's huge. That's something I wouldn't have done on my own. That's because I get help from my community, and if you get involved, that's something that you can tap into. Getting back to the matters at hand, for the conference keynote address, I had 2 goals. One was I wanted to bring a speaker who could provide a glimpse into the future of where I believe our built environment is heading, and how we can all advance our practices to meet, support, and help create that future. The second goal I had for a keynote speaker was to deliver the big picture and really drive home the importance of the work that we all do. As it turns out, we have two very special keynote speakers, each one talking directly to one of those goals. As a part-time optimist, I see us heading into a future of not just zero net energy buildings, but buildings that are regenerative, buildings that produce our energy, clean our water, recycle our waste, and provide a healthy living environment. The Living Building Challenge is a program set up to promote and verify buildings that do just that. It's an international sustainable building certification program created in 2006 by the International Living Future Institute. It's the built environment's most rigorous performance standard. It calls for the creation of building projects at all scales to operate cleanly, beautifully, and efficiently. To be certified under the challenge, projects must meet a series of performance requirements, including zero net energy, zero net water use, and zero net waste. It's pretty simple. These are the types of buildings that I believe we will all be working on in the near future. There are only 5 certified LBC buildings internationally at this moment, but there are hundreds in the pipeline. I believe we're at the beginning of a groundswell. And the buildings that are already certified act as a goal for all of us to strive for. Amanda Sturgeon is the Vice President of the International Living Future Institute and Program Director of the Living Building Challenge. She comes to us out of Seattle, Washington. She's a licensed architect who has been designing and managing some of the most sustainable buildings in the Pacific Northwest. She was a founding board member of the Cascadia Green Building Council, and it's my great pleasure to have her here today. Creating her own introduction with a short video on how moving us forward means looking back to nature. Please give a big, warm round of applause for Amanda Sturgeon.
Good morning, everybody. I thought I believe this one might still be on. Is that better? Okay. I thought I would show you some inspiration this morning with the time-lapse video of nature. Those types of videos always have a way of kind of slowing me down for a moment and kind of reflecting and starting to think about a bigger picture. They also fill me with awe and reverence and this kind of amazement for the beautiful world that's around me. I hope it had some of that effect for you. As Mark mentioned, he set me a big challenge this morning that I'm supposed to inspire you with a vision for the big picture and for our future. We'll go a little bit back to the future as well. But I'd like to ask you to kind of step back with me and slow down and consider the concepts of beauty. I know you're going to hear some incredible presentations over the next few days. You're going to hear about policies and programs and deep energy retrofits and some amazing topics. But as global climate change is becoming real and begins to affect each of our lives directly, I'm asking, will that be enough? I came across this conference last fall, and the title being Battle for the Life and Beauty of the Earth, which is also the title of Christopher Alexander's recent book. And are we in a battle for the life and beauty of the earth, is what I wondered. I don't know if I have an answer to that question, but it's certainly a good question to ask. As Christopher Alexander states in his book, the purpose of architecture is to encourage and support life-giving activity, dreams and playfulness. But in recent decades, while our buildings are technically better, more sturdy, more energy efficient, they've also become more sterile, rarely providing the kind of environment in which people are emotionally nourished, genuinely happy, and deeply contented. That's a pretty powerful thing for buildings to do, to make people feel emotionally nourished, genuinely happy, and deeply contented. That's a tall order. So if we're in this battle for the life and beauty of the earth, it strikes me that losing the battle is pretty darn depressing. Because the life and beauty of the earth is really beautiful. I was out for dinner last night with a few of you here, and several of them asked me, well, what are you going to talk about in the morning? I said, I think I'm going to talk about beauty and nature. And we had a great conversation about, well, is beauty really in the eye of the beholder? How do we know that there's one sense of beauty? And can the term beauty be a unifying concept for us? It was a good conversation to have. I've researched what other people think beauty is. Keats said beauty was truth. Stendhal, a French novelist, said beauty is the promise of happiness. And more recently, I saw a quote that said it's the urge to repeat. These all seem like pretty good things to me. But what does that have to do with the owl up here? Well, maybe we can use beauty as a reference point to connect us to happiness and joy and all of those things that Christopher Alexander thinks our built environment should provide for us. There's been some really interesting neuroaesthetic studies recently in Europe that have been looking at, how is our brain reacting to what, and how does it decide aesthetics and beauty? And the interesting thing is that when we're shown images of nature, our brain reacts as though it was happy. So that tells me that there's something here in nature that connects us to happiness. It's a unifying concept between all of us. It could be a photo of trees in the fall that resonates for you, or a very strange looking fish. But they all have a similar reaction in our brain, it turns out. Now, we might all have different experiences actually being in nature. Some of us are, confident to run through a dark wood at night. Others are fearful of that kind of experience. But fundamentally, I think there's enough evidence to show that nature makes us happy. And this guy sure looks happy. Aside from being really cute, you see, he was swimming past me in Hawaii when I was there recently, actually for work. He's blissfully unaware of this impending or present battle that others think we have going on, and maybe we do. But I do think there's something there in that battle, and something that's big and serious and pretty scary to lose. And what it all indicates to me is that we each have to reach down inside ourselves and find our place in our relationship to nature, to find true happiness and to create buildings that can provide some of that for us. We're becoming a society that is increasingly disconnected from nature. There's such a thing called nature deficit disorder. Our kids are spending more time in front of a screen than they are outside. And that scares me about what our future might look like, because I think many of us may have a relationship with nature. We may have a place that resonates with us, that kind of gives us a sense of the awe of what we're part of here in this big world. I know for me, having spent a lot of time almost drowning in the waves in Australia, that rather than never wanting to go in the ocean again, it actually rose in me this sense of my place in the world. When I'm immersed in the ocean and in the waves, I know I'm a small part of something truly amazing and overwhelming. And I wonder if we can all draw from that experience, whether it be an experience from our childhood relationship with nature or, later on in our lives, and use that feeling to drive our work and to make green building richer and create happier spaces. I've always loved the work of Andrew Goldsworthy because it seems to me like he bridges that sense of people and nature and our place within it. And he has a way of expressing this unique view of the world that seems to make us feel like we're part of nature and not separate from it. I think we've done a pretty good job at convincing ourselves that we're separate from nature, especially in the last 100 years. But there are many people creating beautiful spaces that would indicate otherwise. This sanctuary on Whidbey Island takes your breath away. To step inside, you're immersed within the materiality of the place. You could be a small tree or sapling amongst the grand trees of the Pacific Northwest when you're in this space. So I know it's possible. This is a space I've spent quite a bit of time in. I know it's possible to feel in a building as if you are a part of this amazing world, natural world that we're here on. And I've also seen spaces, a space in New Zealand, near Auckland, that I've been humbled by. There's a blur between people and nature here. It's the kind of space that I strive to be in. But it's not a new phenomena to create spaces like this that are connected with their place. We've been doing it for thousands of years. The Yurok Indians knew how to create spaces that reflected their spiritual values, that were created from the place, that reflected their climate and their culture uniquely. And these hill towns in Italy have been inhabited for thousands of years, despite varying religious beliefs and cultures, climates. They've survived natural disasters, and they're still thriving communities today, adapting to modern life. So these places that have these layers of responding to their natural environment are a big inspiration for me. And this isn't. Because this is what we're building. This is what we're creating. And this is where many of us spend a great deal of our time. This ubiquitous type of building, built environment experience with materials brought from elsewhere is disconnected from nature, in my humble opinion. And it makes me feel disconnected from the world, to be in it, around it, near it, driving past it. So I think we can do better. I think we can do a lot better. And I think in Christopher Alexander's words, I think we can create spaces that serve us as human beings and increase our happiness. So the Living Building Challenge, I think, lays out a framework for how we can move towards such places and spaces and communities. I believe it sets a lot of hope, and it sets a pathway or a vision towards a truly restorative future. And I believe, as Mark said, that the time really is now. There is a groundswell happening around our program, and it's in part because there are many people involved in taking on the challenge who are bold and brave, and frankly, downright heroes, because it really is a challenge. They're the kind of people that don't take no for an answer, and they're driven by an ethical passion to make a better future for all of us and not just themselves. It's really a joy for me to work with them every day. They're inspired by nature, but more than that, they're inspired by their own relationship with nature and the joy that they know that that can bring. And that love of nature drives them to create beauty, and also drives them to believe that what we think is currently impossible could be possible. So the Living Building Challenge is moving us beyond code buildings, beyond green buildings, beyond high performance buildings or sustainable buildings, on this journey towards what we call regenerative or restorative buildings and communities. But it also sets the ideal as an indicator of success. How can we make a vision for an ideal world and actually create a pathway to get there? How can we create a world that is ecologically restorative, socially just, and culturally rich? Something that Buckminster Fuller called for quite a few years ago. And the groundswell is happening. We used to have about 2 projects a month sign up for the Living Building Challenge. Last fall, we made a jump to 2 projects a week. We currently have almost a dozen projects in their certification path, 20 built, and almost 200 registered. You're lucky to have 5 registered, including one of those is certified here in Massachusetts. Many of you may not realize that. So the groundswell is spreading. It's spreading throughout North America, but it's spreading internationally. It's an exciting time. We have built examples of living buildings. And speaking of somebody that won't take no for an answer, the Bullitt Center, which is the headquarters for our organization in Seattle, driven by a very passionate individual, Dennis Hayes, who's the CEO of the Bullitt Foundation. And I love to quote him, and he says, "I didn't realize when I started out on this that what I was trying to do was actually illegal." But speaking of not taking no for an answer, Dennis has changed regulations, he's challenged our current financing structures, and he's demonstrated that a 6-story urban office building is possible in the worst sunny climate, the worst climate for sun in the country pretty much. It's a net zero energy building. and so far is overproducing and underusing its energy. It's an incredible project, and it sets a vision for many others. We have projects that have taken, like this one, the problem of 3 million gallons of sewage a year, big problem, into an opportunity, into creating a space where, despite the fact that sewage is bubbling away, people are seeking out this space as a place to sit and meditate and reflect. Transforms our concept of waste into a nutrient cycle and into a resource. Much better than going down a pipe, I think. We have projects that are teaching our future generations how to live within the patterns of rainfall as they see it come through their classroom. How we can turn what we think is waste into a resource to grow a beautiful living green wall. And we have projects that aren't seeing themselves as separate from the place that they're created in. They're seeing the building as an opportunity to integrate with nature and to be a part of it. And for all of those, as I know this is a building energy conference, we have many net zero energy certified projects as well. This one in Phoenix has reduced the cooling load in Phoenix significantly through evaporative cooling and thermal chimneys, and has set an example for how, in this type of climate, net zero energy could really be possible. Of course, they have great sun in Phoenix, unlike in Seattle, so that helps too. We have multi-family home projects that are net zero energy, sold at market rate and sold rapidly, far ahead of their competitors. The impossible is possible, and it's happening right now, today. We also have projects that are taking it on themselves to teach future generations how to operate buildings, how to monitor energy, how to change the use of a building throughout the day. We've become passive observers in our buildings. We sit at our desks, we expect it to be a perfect temperature, perfect light. This type of project is teaching kids there's a different kind of building we can interact with that actually creates some joy and happiness along the way. And I mentioned that you have local projects. This is your local certified living building. Smith Bechtel Environmental Classroom, thanks to Bruce Coldham, who I'm sure many of you know here, that's seeking to connect people with nature and bring in biophilia and beauty inside the classroom. So all of these projects, I hope, give you some inspiration and give you a vision of what the future looks like, because the future is already here. The future is demonstrated, being demonstrated every day by these dedicated project teams. And so I'd like to call you to action. I'd like you to join us in taking on the challenge of living buildings. And I'd like to ask you, in the very popular Gandhi quote, to stop being the change that you wish to seek. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Turn the mic back on.
Amanda, thank you very much for that. That was very inspiring. And again, her work is helping to inspire us to move in that direction. Thank you. And create a world of sustainability. It was 1 year ago today, exactly, that As I was walking into the hotel for last year's conference, fellow NESEA member Joel Gordis pulled me aside and said, "Mark, I have the keynote speaker for you for next year." And I thought, oh God, it's starting already? But what Joel said to me is that today, Gina McCarthy was just nominated by President Obama to become the head of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. She's one of us. She's spoken at the NESEA conference years ago. She's somebody who is leading the charge to create a cleaner environment, and she would be perfect. And I had just heard that President Obama had essentially charged her with creating real change in regard to climate change. And I quickly realized that she had the potential to put policies in place at a national level that will finally start to turn our country toward a cleaner, more sustainable future. In terms of my goal to bring someone in who could deliver the big picture and really drive home the importance of the work we do, there is not a more perfect person to do that than Gina McCarthy, the current administrator of the US EPA. Prior to being chosen by President Obama, Ms. McCarthy worked on environmental issues in government for over 20 years in Massachusetts and Connecticut. During that time, she implemented some of the EPA's most controversial regulations on greenhouse gas limits, higher fuel economy standards, and mercury emissions from power plants. She now has a role in writing climate rules that will reshape the nation's electricity supply and make the biggest strides ever taken to throttle back our nation's production of greenhouse gases. Ms. McCarthy has recently returned from China, where she's been in talks with the government of China regarding their energy policy and how we can work together to reduce global production of greenhouse gases. NESEA is proud to have Ms. McCarthy speaking to the professionals who themselves are leaders in the industry in high-performance building and sustainability, the ones who are leading the charge to reduce carbon production by reducing waste from our buildings and our built environment. Ms. McCarthy will address the EPA's upcoming policies, how they may affect our work over the next several years. And with that, it is my great honor to give you Gina McCarthy, Administrator of the EPA.
First of all, good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. First of all, I want to thank Joel for suggesting, and Mark, thank you for your kind remarks, and Amanda, thank you for giving a great speech. I'm sorry I walked in towards the end of it. I actually had an event before this, but I really wanted to be here, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I want to be here because I know how important the work is that you do. And I know that some of the work at EPA is hopefully going to provide added incentives for you to be successful in the work that you do. And so I wanted to come here and talk to you all. But more importantly, when Mark was talking about driving home the importance of addressing climate change and the work that you do, I couldn't help but think about Maggie McCary. Maggie McCary, are you here? There she is. Hi, honey. That's my daughter, Maggie. The reason why I point her out is because she actually does this crazy-ass work that you people do. She works in the trenches, working thankfully for some great people at the Department of Energy Resources, and thank you, Commissioner, I appreciate it, for all of for giving her a job and keeping her there is helpful. But she does great work, but she also drives home to me how difficult the work you do is and how important it is, and how successful you can be and how successful you've been here. And so I wanted to come here to both thank you for the work that you do, but most importantly for Maggie is she reminds me of why I do the work that I do and why I think the work you do is so important, because I would really love to be able to leave her and others like her an opportunity to have a great world to live in, the same way the gifts that were left to me by my parents. So hopefully we all keep that in mind. And as you can tell from the tone of my conversation, we're going to be a little bit higher level thinking here. So I can hopefully motivate you and let you know that with EPA, you have a partner in crime. We are going to be working arm in arm together to tackle the challenge of climate change. But I do know that the built environment is a really big part of our climate and energy puzzle moving forward. And it really is good to be back home working in New England have for so long. It's a great pleasure to be here because frankly here is where the action has been for so long. In DC there's a lot of great folks who talk a lot, and we appreciate that. But it's time that we really do a lot, and I think that is President Obama's message. This next few years are some years of action, ladies and gentlemen. We've talked, it's time to walk the walk the same way that you have. Same way that you have. Now, since the 70s, NESEA, and I hate to admit it, but I've been around that long, if not a little bit longer, has been really walking the walk themselves. They've been pushing the energy horizon to always look beyond megawatts to negawatts. And finally, people actually understand what negawatts means. And it's a really good thing. And I know it started small, but I'm just so excited to see how well this organization has blossomed. And I'm so proud to be from Boston and be from New England, where you are actually have been a shining example of being incubators of innovation. It is amazing to see the energy that has been generated here. And so I know that I would, I actually wish that I could have grabbed my friend Ernie Moniz, who lives right up the street as well, who actually is the Secretary of Energy, because you would know that we're going arm in arm in this together. The administration is joined to look at how we align our environmental and energy policies to address the things that really matter to people. To address the fact that they need a reliable energy supply, but they're very concerned that we do that in a way that protects public health and the environment in this country and the world. And that is the challenge that we are taking on together, because we understand that the time is actually now to do this. The time is now to do this. Now, if you look at whether or not we can meet these lofty goals of moving energy, moving the environment, and moving the economy in the same direction, I think if you look at all the work you're doing, you see that that is absolutely what's possible. And when you bring it up a little, what are we doing in DC? If you look at the light-duty vehicle rule that we proposed and passed a while ago, you will see that we have developed a rule that is good for national security, that is good for automakers. Domestic automakers have 425,000 people that have joined their factories all across the U.S. because they are now leading the world in producing the kind of efficient vehicles that people actually want to purchase. Hallelujah. We have worked with them. We worked with the union, worked with environmental constituencies to deliver huge amounts of greenhouse gas reductions in these light-duty vehicle rules. How much? Equal to the same amount as the U.S. generated in its entirety in 2010 with those rulemakings. One sector doing better economically, driving the economy, addressing the greenhouse gases. So it's not really just a win for the planet, it's just a win for everybody, because guess who's the biggest winner here? You and I that buy these cars. I don't know about you, but when I was looking at my price that I was paying for heat over these polar vortex months, I could have used $8,000 in my pocket, which is what people will save when they buy these vehicles over the lifetime of those vehicles. I could have used that. And you know what? I'm going to buy those cars. You know what? You're going to buy those cars because they're available and they're the right thing to do and will all contribute to the challenge of a healthier planet. And when we look at this, I want to put it in just one more even larger context. Is that I do not know how many of you watched the President's State of the Union this year. I hope you did, because I looked fabulous in red. And if you didn't watch it, I wanted you all to know that. The President gave, I think, an incredibly inspiring State of the Union, because his real basis for his speech was driving opportunities for all across the U.S., finding ways to bring folks that are in the lower income into the middle class and providing folks in the middle class an opportunity to move up, what he called the ladder of opportunity. Well, I do not know anyone who can climb a ladder of opportunity that is suffering from asthma, that is exposed to toxic chemicals and has illnesses as a result of that. We need a healthy environment for a healthy economy. Who is kidding who? You know, the Affordable Care Act is wonderful. Not needing care is even better. And that's what we're talking about here. And when you talk about what is the biggest public health challenge that this world faces and that the U.S. faces, our biggest economic challenge is the challenge of climate change. It is a national security challenge. It is a challenge that predominantly will impact those individuals that are at the lower rungs of the ladder of success. Because who gets hurt the most when Hurricane Sandy hits? It's not big businesses, it's not Wall Street. They were up and running. It's all the small businesses that serve communities that need to have a grocery store down the street because no one else services their needs. These are the communities that have been traditionally left behind, and in a changing climate will be further and further behind if we don't have our eyes focused on the prize. And so climate change isn't just a challenge of public health. It is not just a challenge of environmental justice. It is a fundamental economic challenge that the United States has to tackle and understand, and how the President is telling us in a speech he gave last year that EPA needs to be part of turning that challenge not into a visible opportunity for action, but how our actions need to be an opportunity for every American to do better in this country, and that we can do this. This is our challenge together. I do not need to tell you this. I am here speaking to the choir. Actually, I was speaking to preachers last week about the same issue. And they said amen every once in a while, so I don't know. Amen. Thank you. So we need to really focus our attention. And as probably you may have heard, EPA is in the middle of some discussions of rulemakings that have been a little bit contentious around this issue. Maybe you haven't heard. Maybe you're totally out of the loop and haven't watched television or listened to the radio. But EPA is going to be front and center on some of these things. And one of them is how do we really focus on working with our folks at DOE to really push clean energy forward. you know, we all know what is the challenge of climate change. The challenge of climate change is to move away from reliance on fossil fuel, to continue to transition to cleaner and cleaner energy supplies. And part of that is not just what you generate, which is what EPA regulates, but part of it is how do you actually reduce energy demand. That is a key piece of it. The third rung is also, of course, looking at renewables. And how do you start making that transition? And right now in the US, we are in a transition in the energy world. There is no question about it. Inexpensive natural gas is challenging the ability for some older coal generation to continue to exist and be competitive. We know that. Frankly, EPA's rules have also pointed out the need for continued pollution reduction in some of these very same facilities, which means that investment would need to be made in order to comply. So you're seeing shifts in the energy world right now. Now, the need we need to think about is how is that shift moving? How do we continue to have that shift be good for the economy, because we are seeing manufacturing return to the United States that went offshore many years ago. They're coming back. We have inexpensive energy supplies. We want those jobs. We want that production. But what we need to do is figure out how that fits in a trend of transition that in the end will be a significant opportunity for this country to be ahead of the rest of the world on clean energy. That's our goal, and to keep moving that forward. And I know as well as you that it's not just about EPA regulating carbon emissions from power sector. It's not just about that. It's about how do we use that as an opportunity to transition to put significant investments in energy efficiency and renewables. You cannot shut off one without having all of the rest of the opportunities available to you to reduce energy demand and to make this transition happen that we're all looking forward to. And frankly, that is the challenge that we are facing when we look at our rules that are looking at how do you reduce carbon pollution from new power plants, and especially how you reduce pollution from existing carbon plants. Because we are going to be putting out a rule in June that will push the envelope, if you will. It is a rule that's going to regulate carbon emissions from existing power plants, and it is making every human being in the United States who is aware of this a little concerned. Isn't this fun? I just love my job. So what we did was, instead of just going to a rulemaking and then seeing the reaction of the proposal, which is a little bit not how we do our work, we always do outreach. But what we did was we've done massive outreach. We have been probably to every state in the United States, in small meetings and big meetings, meeting with the energy world, meeting with the environmental world, talking to them about how do we do this in a way that makes sense to meet the obligation I have to the President of the United States, which is to do this in a way that maintains energy reliability, that doesn't significantly challenge the cost of electricity across the U.S., but that also drives a continued growing economy. Now, I think that we can do this. You can call me foolish, but I've done it. Every rulemaking I've ever done, I've looked at how we make it make sense in a democracy which doesn't want a revolution, but wants continued progress moving forward. We can do this. Now, we are doing this because we are listening. In every state, every energy supplier that we have had, when we've met with our regional transmission organizations, when we've met with every ISO, when we meet with all the DPUC commissioners, I am getting so into the lingo in the energy world. It is so cool. When we're doing this, what we're actually doing is not telling them anything. We've been soaking it up. We've been listening. We've been trying to figure out how you do what would be a standard rule in a different way so that it opens up flexibility for the states to be able to develop plans on how to meet the reductions that EPA is going to set for these guidelines in a way that doesn't just focus on energy generation. Because folks, as you know better than I do, there's a couple of sides of this equation, and the most productive and interesting side is what do you do on the efficiency side? What do you do on the renewable side? How do we provide an incentive, not just for on-site reductions at traditional facilities, but how do you open up a world of opportunity on that side of the equation? That's what states are asking us to do. That's what the energy world is asking us to do. And frankly, this part of the Clean Air Act will, as Kurt Spalding will tell you, who is our regional administrator here, who had one of the most robust listening sessions ever at his office in Boston, he will tell you the most interesting part of this equation is how do we provide continued incentive to do the work that you're doing. I went to China just 2 months ago, and I met with a variety of officials there. And those officials, mostly we talked about the air challenges that they have there. Because if you've been to China recently, how many of you have? See, a lot of people actually. You giggle, but there are a lot of people because China's important. China's really important. I went there because they are having trouble in their cities delivering clean air, and people are wearing masks. 23 million people in Beijing who go out every day many times are wearing masks because the pollution level is so difficult. And the challenge that we have is how do we get China to focus on that as at the same time as they're focusing on climate change. Because if we can't move together in partnership, then whatever we do here will go for naught. We need to bring other countries with us, in particular China. Now, the reason why I wanted to mention this is that, in case you didn't know this, and you may not, is China is more bureaucratic than the United States. I know that is hard to believe. But Massachusetts, thankfully, has combined their energy and environmental folks in a way that they talk to one another. Hopefully they all speak the same lingo, which is a broader lingo, more acronyms, but it makes it more fun. What China does is they separate their air programs from their climate programs. So you are dealing with two ministries there. So my job was to first go to the air one because we've been working with them. They know they have a significant challenge. But what I really needed to do was to talk to Minister Xia, who is actually the minister of the NDRC there, because they do climate. They do climate and they do economy. They do development. And I asked them, I begged them, can you please talk to one another? Figure out how you do this together. Because if you're developing an air strategy that doesn't recognize carbon pollution, then you are doing yourself a disservice economically, and you're doing the rest of the world a disservice. You know what he asked me first before he asked me whether I could help him on anything? He said, can you do something on buildings with us? I thought that might be of interest to you people. He said, we're putting up buildings like crazy and we have all these buildings. I really need help in understanding where the opportunities are to become more energy efficient, because they've figured out that more and more power plants just mean more and more air pollution and mean more and more of a climate change challenge. So go to China, folks. Sell U.S. technology. Sell U.S. innovation. Help us work through these issues. As you probably know, EPA has had a robust programs that it works on with DOE that we've been very successful in helping to support energy efficiency in products, the development and continued evolution of portfolio manager, which has been embraced by cities like Boston and others. Massachusetts has taken that tool, made it their own, made it better than ever, and is using that to generate opportunities for grants at the local level. You people, as a bunch of states, have worked together to develop the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. I am extraordinarily proud of the work you do. You must go out and proselytize, folks. Say amen. Amen. Thank you. Go spread the word. Spread the word. We are at a pivotal moment, folks. I do not know any president who has stood up for an hour and 45 minutes, I think it was that long, but it may have only been 45, it seemed longer, that has stood melting in the heat at a university and stood there in Georgetown and poured his heart out about why climate change is the pivotal issue that we must address if we care about leaving this world to the next generation as healthy as what we were given. And he made a case for why this is not just an environmental problem, but it is a fundamental economic challenge. It is a fundamental choice as to whether we are going to lead the world in clean energy or be left behind. In every city that I travel to, I do not find climate deniers. I find people who are worried about the changing climate, who want to know what they can do to be part of the greenhouse gas reduction revolution, but also figure out how they can keep the community safe, knowing that the climate has changed. You people can help them with this. There are states that are just on the cusp of looking at the opportunities that you people are now looking at the second and third generation of how to access. Go to Arkansas. They are embracing energy efficiency. Take a look at what we do in June. Take a hint. Reggie's gonna look awesome. Make it bigger. Energy efficiency is going to be a great opportunity. Development of renewables is going to be rewarded. These are the design strategies that we are trying to build in to this rulemaking so that it is not nerdily and narrowly focused on generation, but instead provide opportunities for growth, opportunities for consumers. Help them save money, help us save the planet. You go, guys. Thank you. I love you, Maggie McCary.
Amen. Thank you, Administrator McCarthy. Over and over again, I hear from NESEA members that it's not possible for us to walk the walk without having the proper policy environment in place. So we are delighted to have Administrator McCarthy as our partner in crime. That was awesome. So earlier, I mentioned the NESEA Zero Net Energy Building Award. We've been offering this award and a $10,000 prize for the past 7 years. For the first few years, we had trouble finding any applicants who could meet the challenge of producing at least as much energy as they consumed for a full year. This year, we had 8 applicants who met the challenge, and some by a margin significant enough to power an electric car. In a moment, I'd like to introduce Alicia Barton, CEO of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, which has been a longtime partner and gold sponsor this year of the conference. As CEO of the Mass Clean Energy Center, Alicia is responsible for leading the CEC's efforts to accelerate the success of the clean energy technology sector in Massachusetts. Since her appointment in 2012, Alicia has driven the Mass CEC's efforts to provide support for all aspects of the sector, from early stage technology innovation to workforce development and to clean energy project deployment. Under Alicia's leadership, the Mass CEC's programs have helped deliver record job growth in the clean energy sector in the Commonwealth, while seeing rapid expansion of clean energy projects throughout Massachusetts. Her tenure has been marked by the historic groundbreaking of the New Bedford Marine Commerce Terminal, America's first offshore wind facility. Prior to joining the Mass CEC, Alicia held several appointments with the energy and environmental agencies of the Commonwealth. Her passion for climate issues is rivaled only by her passion for the Ohio State Buckeyes, which is something that she shares in common with NESEA's trade show manager, Jenny Spencer, and anybody who's had a conversation with Jenny for about 5 minutes will know that. Alicia, we are grateful for your support not just as a sponsor, but also in the form of the 3 fully funded interns that we get from the Mass CEC each semester. So please join me in welcoming Alicia Barton to announce this year's Zero Net Energy Building Award winner.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that very, very kind introduction, and thanks to Mark and everyone at NESEA for including us in the program. I have the very difficult task of following Gina McCarthy's amazing speech. That was really, really terrific, and I think a great inspiration for all of us. As difficult as it is to follow that, I do think we have some exciting news around the award winners who really embody the spirit of what Administrator McCarthy was talking about in terms of capitalizing on the opportunities to make change that hits a number of our goals. For those of you that don't know us, just by way of introduction, at the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, we are, as Jennifer briefly said, we're specifically created to support the clean energy sector here in Massachusetts. We have programs to drive innovation and technology and to develop a workforce for the clean energy sector, and we specifically have programs that support adoption of clean energy solutions. And I know we've worked with many of NESEA's members in that regard as well. We were created specifically as part of the overall effort that Administrator McCarthy talked about here in Massachusetts to capture all the benefits that come with adopting clean energy solutions, and specifically to capture those economic development benefits. We are proud to work closely with the industry here in Massachusetts, which now is comprised of 80,000 workers, 5,500 businesses, and it's a sector that has seen double-digit growth in each of the last 2 years. It is one of the fastest growing sectors of the Massachusetts economy. And I just want everybody to think about that, because it really drives home the point that, that we can see economic growth come from a direct result of making these smart choices about energy and the environment. And I can't think of a better evidence of the strength of this industry in Massachusetts and across the Northeast than by walking the trade show floor here earlier and seeing the companies that are really doing exciting work to radically change the way we generate and use energy in our homes and businesses. Administrator McCarthy noted that that Massachusetts and New England has been an incubator for innovation, and you can see a lot of those ideas on display here. And it's an exciting thing that I encourage you to investigate and to see exactly what we're talking about when we say that here in Massachusetts we have shown that you can meet a lot of these goals at once. You can make progress for the environment and for climate, and you can make progress in helping consumers reduce their energy consumption bills, and at the same time creating those high quality jobs for the long term that we have shown come as a direct result of investments in this sector. It's truly a win-win-win proposition, and that's why I'm honored to introduce you to a couple who has embraced the win-win-win opportunity that comes from creating a zero net energy home. The 2014 NESEA's Zero Net Energy Building Award winners are Larry and Jill Burks, who I'll invite to the stage in a moment. With their uphill house in Cambridge, New York, the Burks have taken the idea of building a zero net energy home to new heights, incorporating energy efficiency, monitoring, well thought out design, and a modest 7 kilowatt solar PV system that provides enough electricity to power the home and their plug-in vehicle. Before the program, I had a chance to look at some of the pictures that the Burks shared with me, and I can tell you it's truly a beautiful home inside and out, and it's also a working farm. So you can tell that the Burks have a very ambitious vision and that they have implemented a really comprehensive notion of sustainability. Perhaps even more impressive, the Burks have taken on the role of educators, documenting the process of building their home on their blog, www.uphillhouse.com, and sharing the successes and struggles that come along with designing and constructing a zero net energy home. By showing others that zero net energy is an attainable goal, the Burks truly are leading by example, and that's why NESEA has chosen to honor them today with the 2014 Zero Net Energy Building Award. Congratulations to Larry and Jill Burks.
Next up is Commissioner Mark Sylvia of the Department of Energy Resources. Appointed by Governor Deval Patrick in 2011, Commissioner Sylvia and his team are implementing nation-leading energy policies and programs that are delivering economic and environmental benefits for Massachusetts families and businesses. 123 cities and towns, representing nearly 45% of the state's population, are currently designated as green communities. Solar installations have surpassed the governor's 2017 goal 4 years early, with solar electric systems installed in nearly every one of the Commonwealth's 351 municipalities. And investments and results in energy efficiency have earned Massachusetts the distinction of being the #1 state in energy efficiency for the last 3 years running by the American Council for Energy Efficient Economy. Commissioner Sylvia is here to share an announcement about a huge Zero Net Energy Buildings initiative that the state of Massachusetts is launching. And we are delighted to be the venue for this announcement, given our clear focus on Zero Net Energy through our $10,000 annual award, and also based on the Zero Net Energy Buildings database we'll be launching later this spring with funding from the Barr Foundation. So now I'd like to introduce to you Commissioner Sylvia to make his announcement.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here at NESEA. And before I make the announcement, I do want to take a brief moment to ask members of the Department of Energy Resources team to stand up and be recognized for your efforts. You heard about the great successes that we've had. It's really about teamwork. So will all the members of DOER please stand up to be recognized for all that you do. Very well deserved. I'm just the commissioner. They do all the hard work. When Governor Patrick took office in 2007, he immediately embarked on a path that included clean energy and innovation at the front and center of his administration. Since that time, progress has been made fast and effectively. Groundbreaking energy legislation, participation in RGGI, and a far-reaching executive order on state buildings were all part of a long-range vision of making Massachusetts #1 in clean energy. Few know the results better than you, the NESEA faithful. The Commonwealth has been ranked #1 in energy efficiency 3 years in a row. We increased installed solar capacity from 3.5 megawatts in 2006 to 463 megawatts, a 132-fold increase. Together, we have among the most aggressive GHG emission targets in the country, and our energy efficiency programs through Mass Save are second to none when it comes to efficiency investments and benefits. In March 2008, right here at NESEA, Governor Patrick took another bold step, announcing the creation of a Zero Net Energy Buildings Task Force and tasked them to develop recommendations on how the state could move toward broad adoption of ZNEB in the residential, commercial, and public sectors. Over 70 building and energy professionals, many of you are here today, met for 9 months to hash out goals, strategies, and recommendations, ultimately resulting in the groundbreaking Getting to Zero report that demonstrated once again the Commonwealth's leadership in promoting innovation and forward thinking. Let me once again thank the valuable team who worked so many hours in developing this exciting list of recommendations. If we can give them all a round of applause. It's important to remind everyone what the task force called for as I'm leading up to this announcement. Improving energy codes dramatically, creating a system for benchmarking, reporting, and tracking energy use, developing incentives, enhancing workforce development and public education initiatives, and actually constructing Zero Net Energy buildings in the state portfolio. In the ensuing years, I'm pleased to say we've made substantial progress towards implementing many of these recommendations. Massachusetts has adopted the most recent edition of the IECC code, which is updated roughly every 3 years. It's the law in Massachusetts. We've implemented a new residential property energy labeling program in Western Massachusetts called Home MPG, and are piloting an asset energy rating method for commercial buildings in Eastern Massachusetts. The state's Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance has built over 55,000 square foot project in Danvers designed to ZNEB standards, and is in the process of building another 37,000 square foot ZNEB facility in Westboro. And the Patrick administration successfully, and certainly with the help and guidance of the Clean Energy Center, has implemented a host of workforce development and broad training initiatives. As a result of these and other efforts, the clean energy economy is in full swing, as you heard CEO Barton mention, showing double-digit employment growth the last 2 years in a row, now employing some 80,000 people in more than 5,500 clean energy companies here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts energy efficiency incentives through Mass Save have helped to dramatically expand efficiency improvements in both existing and new buildings, while renewable incentives through Mass CEC and the REC markets fuel the significant growth in installed renewable energy. But with the rapid national progress in constructing high-performance buildings, many of which are generating all required energy from on-site renewables, and in some cases are even energy positive, it is clear that we at the State Energy Office can and should be doing more. And so on behalf of Governor Patrick and Secretary Sullivan, I'm pleased to announce the launch of a new $3 million Pathways to Zero Net Energy program. Our intention is to use this new program to fund the design and construction of zero net energy building projects in various sectors, train building professionals, and develop communication and education strategies to move the entire building industry towards zero net energy building practices. We plan to work on the outline of this initiative with your guidance, and I want to stress that, your guidance, and iron out the details with the ZNEB Council's expertise over the next 2 months. While we recognize that $3 million is not necessarily going to change the face of construction in Massachusetts, we do believe that by focusing our efforts more directly on zero net energy projects and outcomes, we can build upon and enhance the momentum that is already moving our construction practices in the right direction. DOER's team hopes that you will join us as we move forward on this initiative, give us guidance, participate in programs, and provide valuable feedback along the way. There is no better place to make this announcement than here at the Building Energy Conference, sponsored for the 14th year by NESEA. I want to close by recognizing the work of NESEA's staff and loyal volunteers, including DOER's own Tina Halfpenny and Ian Finlayson, and the importance of this conference in bringing such incredible diversity and expertise together in one room. This really is an impressive showing. I have no doubt that collectively we can ensure that our new Pathways to Zero program, along with all the great work being done here in Massachusetts and the region, will be successful. Let's keep moving the Commonwealth forward. Thank you very much.
All right, we're in the home stretch. Any of you who know our Vice Chair, Andy Padian, know that on every opportunity, at every available opportunity, he will remind us that NESEA stands for the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association. And I know there's been a lot of talk about New England today and about the Commonwealth and Massachusetts. While I was sitting and taking in the keynote, Amelia Amon, who's going to be chairing our BENYC conference this year, which is going to be held on October 16th in New York City at the Time Life Center, passed me a note to remind you all that we're going to be calling for proposals for that conference very soon, probably within the next 15 days or so. So you all, as conference attendees, will be receiving a notice when we issue that call for proposals. I know that you've heard lots of encouragement to get involved in our community. This is one first step you can take to get involved. Please submit a proposal, become part of the planning committee, help us grow that conference to rival this conference. So next up, I'd like to call Mark Sternick back to the stage, along with BE14 Vice Chairs Matt Root and Bernice Radel. And I think also they may have some special guests that they'd like to invite to the stage as well, to say a few words about our planning for BE15 and to send you off to your sessions.
So I just want to say, give a big thank you to Matt Root and Bernice Radel for being the vice chairs for this conference. And traditionally, the vice chairs of one year will move on to be the chair for next year's conference. Matt Root will be doing that. Bernice is moving on to some national project, which I can't say much about, but you'll probably be hearing more about that later. So Matt Root, please come on up for a hand.
Thank you, Mark. Now is certainly the time to enjoy BE14, but I do want to make two quick announcements. One, I'd like to introduce Jean Caroon and Rachel White, who will be serving as the vice chairs for BE15. Please stand up, Rachel and Jean. And also, I'd just like to encourage all of you to join us April 11th in New Haven, graciously hosted by Atelier 10 for the first BE15 Planning Committee meeting. So mark your calendars, April 11th at Atelier 10. Thank you very much.
That wraps our plenary, and go out, enjoy the trade show floor, enjoy the sessions, get excited about the work that we're all doing. Thank you very much.